Hello, World Wide Web. I'm Dr. Shado, the internet personality with the best hair, and today I bring you yet another movie based on a real killer. This time we're looking at From Hell, which is based on the killings of the infamous Jack the Ripper, and by based on, I mean extremely loosely, as this series of murders is so well known, and known well for the fact that they happen to be unsolved. In order to make a generic Hollywood production out of it, you've got to fudge quite a lot of the details. However, that's not the important part. The details are already mangled in the visual novel this movie is based on. The real important thing is the fact that the investigator leading the case on the Ripper murders happens to be played by Johnny Depp. Depp, the actor whom, while I will freely admit has a considerable range of character, still has made his way onto 1 or 2 dozen more movies than I was personally prepared for. Also, the fact that most of whom I spoke to about him seemed less interested in his acting prowess and more in his, other attributes, didn't help to bring me to seek out his work. But on the plus side, this movie is not directed by Tim Burton, so at least we know it's not Johnny Depp for the sake of Johnny Depp. In fact, he was certainly not the first choice. There were 4 other actors before him who, for one reason or another, couldn't do the role. So. Oh well, let's take a look at From Hell and see just how long it takes for this true story to lose sight of reality. Immediately, as the film opens up to Johnny Depp playing the role of Frederick Aberline, getting high as a fucking kite. Which, as far as all historical records show, the man did not do. At least not to the point where it is a defining feature of his life as depicted here. Never mind that, onto the streets of London, where we learn what the sub-crisis of this film will be, as Mary Kelly, played by Heather Graham, is accosted by her pimp, David Schofield, playing the role of McQueen, who, surprise surprise, wants his pimp tax or else she will be killed.
You tell your 5 friends you bring me my money by tomorrow.
Damn. You know it's 1888, right? Prostitution was just made illegal in 1885. Man, pimps pop up fast. I mean, it can't be that the modern writers just wrote modern prejudices into the script, could it? Therefore, her and her 4 friends are in the deepest of shits, and wouldn't you know it, they all happen to be the same prostitutes whom the Ripper killed, according to history. However, according to history, there's no evidence they even knew each other, let alone were all buddy-buddy. Poetic license! They also, believe it or not, are much more attractive than the actual victims were. Again, poetic license. We are also introduced to Joanna Page as Anne Crook, who happens to have a baby and lots of money, so why bother with a nursery or a household when you can just leave the kid with the local circle of whores instead? Oh, for fuck's sake, they just took the poetic license, operated some heavy poetic machinery, and demolished any semblance of historical accuracy or even coherent believability in less than 5 minutes. So the historical smoothie of friendship causes Anne to tell them she'll get the £4 they need from her husband, Albert, and we see that she is very skilled in persuasion. But oh no! Random group of random assholes happen to spoil this and drag the man and the woman off in separate carriages. Which was also not... Yep, let's make sure this review isn't too repetitive. I'm just gonna stop when there's something that occurs that actually does have a basis in reality. Anyway, Mary goes to drop the kids off at Anne's parents' home, which somehow translates to, let's separate now so that the killer can start the body count good and early in this film. Truly the still and steady hand of an educated man. At least that's the angle they're trying to do for the rest of the movie, anyway. While this is going on, Depp is getting good and stoned, but don't worry, this isn't horrible misuse of police funding, because hey, he's a drug-powered psychic medium. Yeah, we've gone from based on a true story to complete gobbledygook that has nothing to do with reality, to overtly functional supernatural territories. Yeah, I'm wondering if by the time this movie ends, the elves would have won the war with the Martians.
You know, they used to burn men like you alive.
No, there's no reason to think that anyone executed for witchcraft was capable of premonitions. Or that anyone capable of premonitions would be executed for witchcraft. They'd see it coming. This little character would be Sergeant Peter Godley, played by Robbie Coltrane. Peter knows about the crazy drug-fueled psychic subplot, but he's perfectly fine with it as long as they can use the power to find criminals. At least he's better about it than the mortician in any case.
Show him.
You show him. Why do I have to be exposed to this degradation over and over again?
Well, it is your job. I mean, you handle dead bodies for a living. How disturbing could this possibly be for you? This is like me complaining, oh, this scene in this movie is a little gory. Forget this for a moment, we get to see what happens to Anne. She is one of the lucky ones being knocked out and then lobotomized. Or at least how this movie tries to portray lobotomy.
One on the right. And this unlucky patient's dementia will no longer take a violent form.
Except, well, first of all, lobotomies were not yet practiced in 1888, and second, that's not a fucking lobotomy, that's tapping the skull. For a lobotomy, you have to scoop out the brain, and also the patient has to be conscious during this for you to be able to tell whether or not it worked. Oh, is that a little too disturbing for your horror movie? On with the prostitute plot, they come up with a plan to get the £4 they need to pay off the anachronistic pimps.
We work, girls. We work the streets harder than ever, right?
Oh, come on, that sounds like the plot of some sex-themed asylum ripoff of Half-Baked. Predictably, they work, and 10 Little Indian style, one more drops from the roster. Depp's psychic capabilities also take the opportunity to upstage the useless mortician.
As soon as possible, I'd like to know what he took.
What? What do you mean what he took?
Didn't you notice?
What?
He's taken at least one of her organs.
Oh, no.
You know, morgue work isn't like fast food. You don't just end up there and have nowhere better to go. You have to work hard for this position. Why the fuck did he go through so much trouble if he's so squeamish? Following this, the police decide to question the women who are obviously being targeted in this movie, but of course they are the victims of this tale, completely ignoring the opportunity to help the people and save their own asses so they can get back to work. You know what this means. 3 down and... Wait a minute. You know there's only 5 recognized Ripper victims, right? I mean, you might want to slow down the body count a bit. This is a 2-hour movie. Well, I suppose they could spend a bit of time padding this movie with a random appearance of the Elephant Man.
Turn around.
In the loincloth, because after all, killing and vivisecting women is one thing, but having male genitalia on display? That's just going too far. This is somehow important as a way to show Johnny Depp making his way to this hospital to meet up with Ian Holm, who plays Sir William Gull, a former surgeon whom he hopes can help him in deciphering the very technical style of killing the Ripper has employed.
I can tell you this much. He cut their throats from left to right, therefore he's right-handed.
The big statement everyone remembers about his dominant hand is that there was a statement from a doctor saying that he figured that the killer was left-handed. He later had second thoughts about that idea, but the thing that everyone remembers is that Jack the Ripper was left-handed. I mean, if he was right-handed, that's too mundane to even bring up. Overall, we learn nothing, so may as well try asking questions from the least helpful people in this movie for the second time. Oh, for fuck's sake, does no one know how to say hello in this movie? She feels better after the bribe of a meal, and reveals to the inspector the little detail about her friend being inexplicably kidnapped at the start of the film. Finding out where she was taken, he moves in to question the lady, which stands to be a lot harder now that she's missing a quarter of her brain. Or her head got tapped a bit. Either way.
He's a prince. A prince. A prince. A prince. And I'm a queen. I'm a queen. I'm a queen.
You do realize that lobotomized patients are not nearly this lucid, right? I mean, I know all you did was poke at her skull, but the guy over there said that she is missing a good portion of her brain, so at least you scripted it to be a proper lobotomy. Except, not effective. Based on this rambling, Johnny decides to take Mary down to the display of the local paintings, where we get one of the big twists of this movie. It turns out that Albert was Prince Edward all along. And this is somehow a bad thing. Maybe, but enough of these minor details like the prince being stricken with an STD, or the inexplicable involvement of the Freemasons, who apparently employ at least 60% of the entire cast of characters. What really impresses me is the admirably determined Postal Service.
I send you half the kidney I took from one woman, preserved for you. T'other piece I fried and ate. It was very nice.
From hell. Well, at least they got the address right.
Oh, and this is something that actually did occur in the Ripper murders. He mailed them half a kidney and claimed to have eaten the other half, and in the letter that he sent them, on the top of it, it said, "From hell." That's actually completely accurate. Except that he should have 2 more kills under his belt at this point before sending that letter, but I guess he can't win them all. Well then, now that Act 3 should be started up right quick, let's bring along another miscellaneous girl into the group so the Ripper has even more people to kill. Hey, hold on, the number of killings were at least consistent with... Well, it didn't take long to figure out how they're going to let Mary survive this movie. Still, Johnny Depp is there to protect, at least one of them.
I want you and your friends off the streets until I can sort this thing out.
Off the streets for how long?
A few days at least.
Well, you better throw us in jail then, because we have no money for food and no money for a dos.
Keeping her locked up in a cell under constant surveillance. Yeah, I'd say that would be a pretty damn good way to make sure she does not get murdered by the Ripper. Therefore, it can't be done. In accordance with horror movie law, Depp pays to keep her and her friends in harm's way, so the body count can continue to rise. Likewise, drunken lesbian and miscellaneous French prostitute have a disagreement of sorts, so the drunkard leaves the safe house like a profane lamb to the slaughter. So, in 3, 2, 1...
Hello, sir.
Gotta love that good old London punctuality. Still can't die all alone, so the other non-Mary main character leaves the safe house as well, because... well, you see, so scared that she ran out into the night into a dark alley for safety. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? There's that, I guess. This kill is interrupted, though, so no preemptive autopsy for Jackie this time. Therefore, he must kill again. Mere minutes later. But going how they had managed to squeeze the events that transpired over several months into just a couple of weeks at most, in order for these 2 kills that happened within an hour of each other to be put to scale, he should probably slit both the women's throats in one clean motion.
Excuse me, miss.
That works too. By the time Depp is on the scene, they are well dead, and the Ripper is gone with a trace. That trace being the quite literal writing on the wall.
An educated man right there. An educated man knows how to spell Jews.
Not according to my research, he didn't. Which shouldn't be too surprising, because if you actually look at the Ripper letters, the man didn't know how to spell a fucking thing. No, seriously, he would fuck up spelling a fucking thing. In accordance with conspiracy first, reality second, they don't bother to explain the desire to prevent a resurgence of the anti-Semitism that has erupted in the wake of the Ripper killings, instead just saying, look, this man wants to destroy the evidence, and he's a Freemason too. Thus, the chalk is washed away, and Depp is relieved of his duty. Therefore, as he needs to protect Mary, procedure be damned, he gets high as a kite yet again. What is he, a superhero fueled by illicit substances? Or are we going to get the big climactic struggle at the end where all hope seems lost, but if he can just reach the crack pipe? This vision provides us with no answers, but a lot of interesting visual effects. Such mindfuckery leads him to feel that the key to cracking this case lies in researching the Freemasons.
Geppetto. The Jews.
Poorly. They're the 3 ruffians. If all you think when you look at them is, oh, Jews, you're a pretty shit detective. Somehow, this revelation brings him to the home of Sir William Gull, who is very willing to speak candidly about that secret society he also happens to be a member of.
They're reenactments, aren't they, sir?
Reenactments of what?
The Jews. The traitors who killed Hiram Abiff founded the Masons. That's how they were executed.
Ah, yes. So the great book tells us.
Well, maybe that's because, well, it is pretty easy to search for Freemasonry, as the folks are pretty open about it. Of course, the movie is trying to do this whole cult secret society in the back doors of things, keeping everything under control, and be open about it, which is completely unintelligible. Never mind reality or sense for a moment. Sir William, the Freemason of Narnia, was charged with covering up the prince's secret marriage, but after learning that Edward contracted syphilis and will die as a result, set out on his own quest for revenge against those associated with Anne, who knew about the marriage.
One day, men will look back and say I gave birth to the 20th century.
Yep, Ian Holm was Jack the Ripper all along. Well, all things considered, I really should have seen that coming. But wait, he still has one kill left to do, and since that's not Johnny Depp, he doesn't finish him off, but heads out to stab the ever-loving fuck out of the most important prostitute in all of England.
Dr. Gull.
Yes!
You were describing the human heart.
Yes.
Oh, and he's crazy on top of it. Well, I mean, he honestly was crazy, but he was crazy with a conspiracy explanation crazy for justification of his craziness. This time he's just straight crazy, so crazier? Indeed, as he goes from slightly mad to schizophrenic to hallucinations so powerful you don't even need a fucking holodeck, still, he gets the job done and over with long before the police arrive. I know it's supposed to be horrifying, but it's actually kind of disappointing. They toned this death way down for the movie. They were afraid that with intestines strewn around the room like Christmas ornaments, that they might overshoot that R rating. Obviously, he notices, hey, this isn't the super important redhead from before, so who cares about this dead bitch? Let's go find that hot redhead. Of course, he learns from a convenient letter that she just decided to leave coincidentally right before the Ripper arrived, saving her ass from an untimely death, as well as leaving her none the wiser to boot. She also adds, hey, I moved down to that old village I told you about, and it'd be great if you'd come by to fuck my brains out. Well, not exactly like that, but you get the point. Things aren't so good for Ian Holm, though, who, for performing these murders under the order of the authority of the Freemasons, now has somehow upset the Freemasons, and therefore is punished by being tap-lobotomized. That is neither the actual punishments that Freemasons give to detractors, nor the cartoonishly over-the-top one that they recite while joining. But what of Johnny Depp? Well, it would be too unsafe for him to go to Mary. After all, if the Masons found out she was alive, they would surely kill her. Because they were responsible for Jack the Ripper, who they did not condone and severely punished. But can't have anyone knowing about the illegitimate royal child now, Except, of course, there was that one law that was passed over a century before these events that would mean that said child is not the heir to the throne anyway. So yeah, kind of pointless all this. Well, never mind that. Happy ending! Mary lives down by the sea near some cliffs, which is the safest place on Earth to raise the secret royal child Alice. Oh, and Johnny Depp OD'd and died. Oh, you silly bastard, killing yourself. Especially considering the actual Frederick Aberline lived to be 86. But I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who would much prefer to watch Johnny Depp die than get the girl. You know, assholes. From Hell is quite the movie, let me tell you. It's not necessarily based on the murders themselves, believe it or not, but a graphic novel based on the murders. But don't let that throw you off. The comic got just as much shit wrong as the film. However, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad piece of cinema. I mean, what does a movie need to make it good? Well, good direction and varied sets, respectable acting, fleshed out characters, and a decent story. From Hell has those, and in that regard, it's actually pretty damn good. I have to bring up Johnny Depp's acting, as he is a major character, and he does a good job showing a wide range of emotion. Generally, things are kept subtle, but he does work the subtlety well, and his skill at acting shows prominently in this film. No one really drops the ball, though, so I can't hold up a shining example of bad acting from this film. It really wasn't there. Well, maybe the jokester cop, but he was used extremely sparingly in the 2-hour running time. As far as sets go, we stick mostly to Whitechapel in 1888, so you don't expect it to be too varied, but the array of buildings each search takes place in help liven up the visuals quite a lot. The streets are perpetually dark for most of the film, though, and I'm pretty sure that the sun does come up in England, at least on occasion. Finally, when it comes down to story, From Hell is a pretty well strung together murder mystery. It loses some points for being one of the oft-repeated conspiracy theories that popped up after the Ripper murders, but despite its origins, the film helped to portray it in a way that didn't seem too crazy. Of course, like most conspiracy theories, it makes perfect sense as long as you ignore many facts that blatantly contradict it, and that's the big flaw throughout the film. For being a Jack the Ripper movie, the adherence to the verifiable facts surrounding the Jack the Ripper killings simply isn't there. The writers made up whatever the hell they felt would drive the plot, reality be damned. Yes, they did a good job with said plot, but with murders as infamous as those of Jack the Ripper, a lot of the people coming to watch your film will know the details surrounding the events. Those details the writers kept fucking up. Whoopsie. Overall, From Hell is a pretty good movie with a decent murder mystery plot that would probably be a lot more entertaining if they dropped the Ripper angle entirely and just made it into its own thing. They practically did anyway, but riding off the familiarity of the Ripper name left the film to suffer for its failure to truly represent the Ripper case. However, this is a movie, not a historical account, and it's damn entertaining, coming in at 4 kidney deliveries out of 5. It sounds strange, but if you don't know anything about Jack the Ripper, then you'll probably really like this movie. If you are familiar with the details of the actual killings and everything, though, magical Freemason lobotomies! I got nothing. Thank you all for watching. I've been Shado, and remember, there is poetic license, and then there are poetic atomic bombs. Use them wisely.
At least take